Hey, we want to welcome you to another podcast. This is our Grace Track Inside the Grace Track podcast. It is March 23rd on a Monday. Most likely we're not doing anything because we're sitting at home. And I decided that I want to do these podcasts because to kind of connect people with people in the church. So today I'm going to interview Dana. Dana, welcome to the podcast, our second podcast.
Our second one, yes.
Yeah, we're doing well. Now, I noticed the service yesterday, okay? That it was fascinating to me because I was thinking in my head after we're doing the service, does anyone dress up for church? Because I'm looking at Ruben, Pastor Ruben. He's wearing a baseball cap with his things in, kind of lunched down, going, okay, let's get this over. And then you decided that you're going to play around with the background. So you're going, hey, I'm reading in San Francisco at the Golden Gate
Church. They give you a selection, so I decided to be different.
This is like a joke, but anyway, hopefully. And then I noticed that when I was talking, it would go to you. The picture would go to you. And I go, thank God that she looks like she's concentrating, even if it's a side profile and she's looking somewhere else. Did you notice that?
Yeah. So because every time you make a noise, the picture goes to you. And so when you were like preaching or when you were talking, you kept saying, okay, so this dude. And so I was like laughing. And so it would kind of go to me, and then I had to like pretend like I was like listening intently when I was just like chuckling. I was laughing. I was trying to be quiet. But
I don't even realize I'm saying dude.
Yeah, you were. You was like, okay, so this dude.
It's like, dude, where's my car?
Oh, like, dude, I'm like, is he talking about Jesus? I thought it was funny. I think it was funny.
You know, the thing is, yeah, you watch it, it'll go downhill every Sunday, you know, meeting the service. I miss church. I miss meeting
I do too.
It's just, it's 2 weeks now, or two Sundays that we haven't met together. So I'm going, man, this is getting old. So anyway, introduce yourself to everybody. You are Dana. You are, how many children?
I have 2 kids, 2 teenagers, boy and a girl. The girl she'll be 17 and the boy will be 14 this year.
Great.
Yeah, I know.
And I love both of them. I love both of them. And it's interesting to me, your daughter's name is Dallas, right?
Dallas, that's right.
This is what I get the kick out of. Why did you name your daughter?
Because my favorite football team is the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay, so you said, but Noah, what was that your favorite biblical character?
Well, I think that was the dad. That was the dad.
Okay.
That was the dad. I wanted to name Noah either Landry or Aikman.
Okay, from Dallas, from the Dallas Cowboys.
But the dad was like, no, we're going to name him something biblical. We're going to name him Noah. I was like, okay.
Okay. And tell everyone what you do for a living.
Okay, so I work in cardiology at Kaiser, very good at the epicenter of cardiology. And I perform ultrasounds. I do procedures with physicians, cardiologists, and I look at hearts.
And so when I was having my heart, or I'm consistently having my heart problems, my congenital heart valve disease, you were one of the first ones I went to. And if you guys know Dana, she has this look in her eyes like, I don't even know how you do it. It's like you're seeing through you to see, are you telling me the truth?
Yeah.
Probably the same look. So I know you really care deeply about me. And so you ask questions that it's almost to the point where I can't say I'm fine because I'm not, and so I'm very, very detailed with you. So let me ask you this, considering you work in the hospital, I was telling my wife this,
Uh-huh.
watching the news. I just said to her, I said, "Are you nervous about getting the coronavirus?" And she said,
Yeah.
"No," which I thought, okay, she's not worried about it. She goes, "I know I'm going to get it, but I'm not nervous about it." And I'm going,
Yeah.
this is not encouraging to me because I don't want it. I'm older.
Right.
I'm
Right.
57 years old. I don't smoke, but it gets me nervous. So do you,
Yeah.
just in your opinion,
Mm-hmm.
just a little overly hyped? Or do you
Mm-hmm.
think, no, this is exactly, just in your personal
Um,
opinion?
my personal opinion. I think I'm glad the media is doing what they're doing, and they are looking at all the different regions and telling us. Um, it's kind of yes and no. Some certain things that are coming out are kind of like, okay, whatever. It's kind of fake,
Right.
but I think we at the hospital feel the same way as your wife.
Mm.
It's kind of like, well, we're gonna get it, so so I'm kind of the same as she is.
Oh, really?
I'm not freaked out
Right.
like everyone else, because it's really funny. It's like in the hospital, it's a certain kind of world.
Mm.
And the whole thing of washing your hands and wiping down everything is something we've been doing for years. I know I've been doing it for over 20 years.
Yeah.
So that's all you do is wipe down things and wash your hands. And every time you enter a patient's room, you do with alcohol, you wash your hands before you leave out the room. That's just common, the common knowledge amongst us to do that. That's just, it's like breathing.
Not, not,
So
not with the general male population.
not with what the general population does,
Because I've
and the
noticed
whole
in
thing.
the last couple of weeks, every man in the public restroom is washing his hands. Which I'm like, oh my goodness, I've never seen this before.
Well, the thing is, I think the whole thing, I think, also be scary because people have to wear masks and things like that. So I think that's what's really freaking people out. And then the whole thing about keeping your distance, and that, I think that's what really has people out. But as far as like working in a hospital, I know probably it'll be passed on to me.
Okay.
So I mean, I'm taking every precaution possible here at the house to, if I get it, not to. I mean, I've tried to prepare. I do have hazmat suits and all that stuff here at the house. So, and
You do.
yeah, yeah, I have all that stuff. I have stuff you walk on, like when you paint and you throw plastic down. I have all of that.
Really?
I have that. Yeah,
Wow.
gloves, masks, the whole thing. I got it all. So,
So let's move on to, I was kind of curious, when did you first find this church?
let me see. You know what? For some reason, I can't remember what year it was. I want to say
Remember
I
how old
want
the kids were?
they were little. I want to say I was living across the street. So I think it was 2000, and I want to say it was 2010.
Okay, so you lived in
2010, 2011.
you lived in apartments across the street?
I lived in apartments across the street.
I never knew that, or I forgot about
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I lived in apartments across the street with my two kids.
it. Okay.
And I just did not want to go to church. I wanted to go to church, but I didn't want to drive that far. And
Oh,
it wasn't really far. I just didn't want to drive that far
and this
for
is not
some
far.
reason.
It's just like across the street.
Yeah,
So
right. So the
basically,
church,
it's not like you fell in love with the church. It's just, hey, it's close.
yeah, and that was my thinking. That was my thinking. That, because one time I think I made a right. I think from Braddock over to, what is that? Is that not Overland? What is that? I can't remember that crossing. But I said, "Oh, is that a church?" And I was like, oh, okay. And I said, okay, that'll be my fallback church in case I don't want to go to church. So that particular Sunday, I was already dressed up to go to church. And then, so I said, I'm not going to go. I just don't feel like going. I feel like driving. I'm going to go walk across the street to the church on the corner. And that's when I saw Ruben. And that's when he was all, you know, in his Dockers and
Probably wearing the same hat that he had when he did the service.
wearing the same hat. And he was setting up.
So were
and I
you
was all
dressed in your Sunday best?
Yeah, I was dressed in my nines, you know, all to the hills, to the nines rather. I was dressed to the nines, and I saw him, and I was like, he's like, church doesn't start for another hour because my church started at 8.
Okay.
And he's like, well, no, church doesn't start for another. And I was like, oh, okay.
So
I'll be back.
Did you go home and change?
I changed into some jeans and a t-shirt.
And been wearing that ever since.
and some flip-flops. And I walked into church, and I've been there. And I've been there ever since.
Yeah. This church is really easy, okay? You don't have to dress up. You just come as you are, you know?
Yes, come as you are.
It's only love. And so,
but I do have to say, that day that I went into church and I heard you speak and I heard you preach, I was sold. I was sold.
Oh,
I was like, what?
Thank you.
Because you started talking about yourself. You started talking about what you've been through. And everything was about your past. And I hadn't heard that from the churches I've been to. It was always like, you got to do this and you got to do this and pass the collection plate. And, you know, it was more like that. And it wasn't from the heart. I never really heard from the heart. They were very protective of it. So
well, yesterday I had to push the money. That's the first time in 21 years because our giving just kind of stopped.
Yeah, I understand.
Oh, good night. I got to push it a little, and it was very nerve-wracking for me to do it. So I haven't seen any results of it. I'm not expecting tons of money to come in, but I hope our needs are met.
Yeah.
But going on the church stuff, you took 2 classes. You took Grace Track.
Yeah.
And you took the emotional and healthy relationship or emotional
Yeah.
and healthy. So you were telling me which one was like the toughest one, or not the toughest one, the more eye-opening one.
I think the relationships class.
Really?
Yeah. The relationships class was deep.
Okay.
Very deep. Grace Track Grace Track is really good because it really like opens your eyes to a lot of things and it really gets at the heart. It breaks down the wall to allow you to be open.
Right.
And learn more about yourself. But that relationships class, ouch, that class was deep. I'm glad we didn't go with the video.
You were in my class, right?
Yeah, I was in your class.
Okay. Yeah, that class was the language it was a crazy class.
That was a crazy class.
It was a crazy class. And it's not like I couldn't do the video. It's like everyone was, you know the old saying, there's all chiefs and no Indians?
Yeah.
That's what it was. I mean, there was strong personalities in that class.
Yeah. But, it was good. And it's good that you understood that and you allowed us to be that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. That you allowed that and you didn't try to, like I'm the head chief. I mean, it was already known, but you didn't try to do that. You didn't try to go, I'm the head chief and you got to watch.
Yeah,
watch your language.
Watch your language. Yeah, that was rated R, that whole class. You're going to just go, dang, we can't record this.
Right. No, we can't record that.
But one thing
somebody would hear and go, this is
church?
This is church?
Yeah, it's different. I'm telling you, this is a funky church. And So, and the thing is, the authenticity and where people in that class felt safe and they could just be themselves and be very open about the relationships. One thing I want to talk to you about this, because one thing that you shared to me a few years ago in a letter form was about forgiveness.
Yeah.
And I thought,
Yes.
oh my goodness, this girl is deep when it comes to forgiveness. Because one thing that both of us have been, I've been through a divorce, and going through a divorce. I was divorced in 1995. So going through a divorce, I mean, it's hard. And it just breaks you. It tears you apart. Everything, when you go through a divorce or a breakup like that, everything that has happened, you question the authenticity of it. Was it real? Were they You see what I mean? And,
right.
So divorce is hard. So you were telling me that your divorce was very difficult, right?
Yeah.
So tell me.
The process of it.
And we don't need to go to the details of why it was difficult.
Yeah.
But tell me what you've learned about the forgiveness, because it was a choice that you decided to make on your own, which I thought, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Dana's
yeah. Well, it was a choice I had to make because, I mean, it was no longer really anymore about he and I. It was more so about the kids.
Right.
And so I think when you put it in that perspective, it's like, okay, the relationship between us didn't work out, but we have to make this relationship work out for the betterment of the children.
Right.
And so I had to put aside all of that happened during the divorce. And the process and what had happened. I had to put that to the side and just focus on the children.
Was that hard for you to put it on the side?
It was it's difficult. It was difficult because it was like, for me, I was like, why are we going through that? You know, it was more like that. And it was like, court again. Oh, more court, So it was like that.
Yeah.
But for me, me focusing on the kids, me focusing on career. I focus on career and kids.
Right.
So while we were going through divorce, I was going back to school at the same time. I decided to go back to school during my divorce, which is absolutely nuts. I don't know who would do that, but I'm glad I did it because I could focus on that and focus on the kids.
Right.
And it made me stronger. I was focusing on Christ, the kids, and school. That was the third, because that what brought me closer to God. I wasn't really focusing on the divorce so much. And when I did that, when I focused on, especially on Christ, it opened me up more. It made me, I had nothing but forgiveness. I didn't have any anger. It was like I was angry, but I had more love. It was weird. It was very strange. It was very strange. It was like, it was more and more love for the kids, more and more love for him.
Really?
And it was more and more love in the way of, this is my brother in Christ.
So that definitely had to be a movement of the Holy Spirit in your life, because that's not natural.
It wasn't natural.
No.
It wasn't natural at all. Not at all.
And see, and I think that's what, for me, I was thinking, how do I know that if I've truly forgiven somebody? And for me, it's when I remember something that happened, but I don't feel it anymore.
Yeah.
And I know I've forgiven. That's for me. Because I can look back at my relationship with my ex and go, I don't feel it. Now, I'm sure if I dwell on it and I'm just hating the life that day, I could start rehashing all this. But it's years ago.
Right.
So to do it. So yeah, I think it's very interesting. And so you moved on, and the thing is, I had the privilege of baptizing your kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that a year ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't, yeah. Wasn't that, yeah, it was last year. It wasn't that long ago. Yeah.
This year we're not going to have an Easter service.
I know.
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
Because we baptized your kids on Easter Sunday
On
of last
Easter.
year.
That's right. Yeah.
And your ex was there, and
Uh-huh.
he helped me baptize them.
Yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
beautiful service we did outside.
Yeah. And
'Cause I was
I'm so
thinking,
glad, I'm glad you did that too. I'm glad you allowed him to do that, because the church that I came from, you could only do that. I don't even know if they allowed you to do that, or you could only do it if you were a minister. So if you were a minister, then you could baptize.
yeah,
But so I'm glad that you allowed him to do that. I think he was just elated. I think that was like the best day of his life that he.
yeah. Well, I know. I think it's important because he has more of a role speaking to those children than I do.
Yeah.
Because Noah and I, we just do mama jokes every time I see each other. So I'm not instilling any values in this child yet. So it's so sad when the kid's out the door. I go, "Hey, your mama," and I'm going, "Okay, I don't
Yeah,
know.
my son loves that. He loves your
I
mama
don't
joke.
know if this is smart." So let me do a closing question thing. Okay, we're all locked
Okay.
down. You have to work because you're in a hospital, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so with everything going on, where do you find your serenity? Or do you find your serenity? Do you have your serenity? Or do you get caught up in this whole hype craziness, even as a nurse or whatever they call you, working at the Kaiser? You're not a nurse, I'm sorry.
I I don't get caught up in it, because I know God has me.
Uh,
So my whole thing is just to be there for the patient,
mhm,
and to make sure that I'm giving patient care. If I get, because we do have some employees, I do have coworkers that are just like, they're coming in with spray bottles of alcohol.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're coming in with spray bottles of alcohol. They're coming in with like pre-made alcohol sanitizer, and passing them out to people. Um, they've got like shoe covers. They've got, they're coming in with everything.
Right.
Because they're very panicked about it. But I'm just, I'm about the patient, and if there is a patient that has it or doesn't have it, I still have to give them care. It's like it's, if a patient has the flu, or if the patient has chickenpox, or if the patient has any other kind of disease that's, respiratory, I still have to treat them the same way. I might have to, put more things on me, but I still have to treat them the same way. So, I pray about it for me, protection of my kids, protection for the patients that are out there. More is likely the doctors and the nurses and those people who are working long hours, who are getting it all the time. You gotta keep them in prayer, and that's pretty much how I just take it day by day.
And good for you. Good for you. Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone for listening to this podcast, and hopefully we'll have another podcast tomorrow. And so, Dana, thank you so much. We appreciate your podcast. And one day I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the day that we're actually will be in church together. That's what
Yeah, I
I'm looking forward
know.
to.
Yeah.
I was even thinking about this after, yesterday I was thinking, maybe the first time we get back together in that funky church, we should celebrate Easter. Just do it
We
late.
sh- yeah, like around Christmas or something.
Especially if it's Christmas, I'll be in the funny farm. 'Cause one thing that I've noticed, if I don't preach on one Sunday, I'm rusty the next Sunday. And the thing is,
What?
yeah, I'm really rusty. So it'll look like for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 Sundays.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to get up there and clap. I have no what I'm doing. Going, is this guy the real pastor? Well, anyway, thank you for listening to the podcast and watching the podcast, excuse me.
Yeah.
And I'll see you guys tomorrow. God bless you and have a great day today. God bless. Bye-bye.